Well, it is 6 o'clock Mountain Time, and where I am, it is 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and we are going to bring it. So welcome everyone to, this is our third Family Strong Convo, and I'm so excited. You know, we started off talking about the gift of wellness and taking care of our mental health. And then we went on to talk a little bit more about the gift of connection and family reunion. And that's why this background looks a little bit different today, because we are, or I am currently experiencing the gift of connection with my family. We have the
Great.
I'm just thrilled because as a part of that, we're going to talk about the gift of curiosity. And I have my good friend Shawn on. And when I thought about this gift, and even, I don't even know if you remember, Shawn, did you read the whole book?
I read 3/4 of it.
Because you are referenced in the book.
I'm catching them all.
Right. So we'll get to that. I'll get to that part where you're referenced in the book. But it's all about exposing our young people. And, you know, what I love is that Shawn and I have kids that are right about the same age. And, you know, they essentially grew up together, and we got to experience so many things together, watching it through their eyes. But now that they're young adults and doing, you know, their own thing, it still doesn't minimize or say that we can't do and have these wonderful experiences with our young adult children and our adult children, depending on, you know, where your kids fall in that range.
Yes.
So I'm excited, and we'll talk about some of those wonderful adventures that we've had together. But before we get started there, I just wanted to read something from the book to kind of set the tone of where we're going with the conversation.
Okay.
And I say, under cultural experiences, I am thankful that I grew up with parents who wanted to expose their children to a variety of cultural experiences. I vividly remember going to performances by local theatrical companies, as well as those on the big stage. My first Broadway play was The Wiz with Stephanie Mills. Mm-hmm. And as an 8-year-old, I was mesmerized by the soulful retelling of the classic tale of The Wizard of Oz. And of course, both of us growing up in New York City, we were surrounded by cultural activities. Now, yeah. Did your parents, or do you remember that first experience you had with your family?
We went to see, my mother took us to see Dreamgirls.
Ooh.
And I remember it was the cousins, and it was just us. So they dropped us off at the theater. We sat, we did our thing, and enjoyed the show. But you're so correct. Just all that experience in New York City, and so much of being able to see. And as I was relating in the book, because I remember my first concert was the Jackson 5. I'm like, oh my God, Michelle and I are so much alike, you know? But just the availability and saying, you know, our parents took advantage of that and thought it was very important for us to see. I always see us, and remember my sister and I, we always felt like we were commuter traveling children. You know, we didn't go to local school. So we had to travel to go to school. And because you didn't go to a local school, then you had to travel to go see your friends. You know, it was always a kind of a big deal, but always moving. And that was one of my mother's real thoughts, that she felt that my children have to be able to learn to see, and they can't be on the block every single day. You know, if I was playing on the block on Monday, Tuesday, I had to be somewhere else on the outside on Wednesday. So it was constantly moving, but taking advantage of New York, which was beautiful, which was a great, great place.
See, I love that. And I love that our parents took advantage of it and recognized the need to experience the culture. And so keep in mind that people might say, well, I don't live in New York City. I didn't grow up in New York City. I don't have that culture around us. What would you say to someone who presented that as a reason why they don't get out to enjoy what's out there?
Well, you have culture around you, regardless. You don't have to move to take the train, to take the plane, to be somewhere else. Culture's right there. One, it's in your household. Let's just start with that. You know, it's there, you know, whether it's your neighbor on the block, you know, whether it's the parents at the school, but the culture is there, and it doesn't always require money. As you and I know, growing up with the children, we always did something, you know, was just being able to hop in a car, or even, let's say, take a bus, you know. So all that availability was there. It was very much a possibility.
You know, when you say that, well, kids to have swim lessons.
Yes.
And we didn't live too far away from each other. And I forget how old, maybe the oldest was, I don't know, maybe about 11, 12.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Do you remember?
Well, you kind of cut out, you
Yeah.
know, but we
So
were talking about swim lessons.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And you were like, they'll be fine. Let's just put them on the bus.
You know, I was thinking about that whole thing about the bus, you know,
Mhm.
and I just remember now that Morgan, just kind of stretching a little bit, but now that Morgan's in college,
Yeah.
I remember, well, just finishing college, but anyway, when she went to college, I remember one of the things I read, it must have been a USA Today, and it said, you know, your child is ready for college when they do these 3 things. And I don't remember all 3, but one of them was when your child is able to ride the city bus, you know?
Mhm.
And I myself and Jerome were very thankful that we put them both on the city bus, you
Yes.
know, to learn that experience because it's there. Well, one, I'm a commuter from New York.
That's right.
You got on the subway. So
Mhm.
that's what I know. But it's important for them too to be able to travel. That didn't mean to jump around, but you kind of cut out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just remember that wherever they wanted to go, just because if we didn't have a car, you know, it was okay. I mean, we've had that availability to ourselves, but you can still get there. You don't need me to be your taxi driver, you know, your child Uber,
100%
you
that
know.
part. That's right. And you know what, so often, and you talk about that, where we think that we have to do these big kind of trips in order to expose, you know, our young people to the world around them. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you did that didn't cost a whole lot of money, but the outcome was so huge in terms of the payoff that they received.
Right. Oh, wow. There's so many things I could think of, you know. But you know, one, like I remember you and I and the kids, we went to see some dinosaur village or something like that, you know. So it doesn't take a big payoff to get there. There's a lot of free things that you can go see. We, you know, we've been to the zoo. We, you know, participated in a lot of free activities, you know, given by the state, which is a wonderful thing. But as far as the children, what I think of when you ask me that question is putting them in expeditionary learning school, you know, and I think of that because expeditionary learning school, for those that might not be familiar, it's a form of learning where it's a lot of hands-on experience, you know, and that was a public school. So practically it was almost like a free schooling, but they had the ability to be able to travel. You know, they were in school 4 days, out 1 day, you know, so they were traveling, they were camping, but they were doing a lot of experiences that I didn't feel like, okay, now this weekend, what are we going to do? This weekend, what are we going to do? A lot of it was funneled through school, you know, as well, which to me was a lifesaver because the weekends we could just enjoy our time and I feel like we have to do anything. But then they also get the experiences on both sides. So.
Now, talk a little bit more about that, because with the expeditionary learning, and I remember I didn't know much about that. And when you were telling me about all the fabulous things that the kids were doing, I was like, wait a minute,
Mhm.
I need to get my kids involved. So, and you mentioned that it was a free public school, but talk about some of the experiences that your kids had while in this environment and how old they were, because I think that's really important too.
Well, I remember the first week of school, Morgan started in first grade.
Mhm.
And I remember going and the teacher was talking about they're going to be camping, you know? And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, my 6-year-old, what, camping 3 days away from home? Just no way possible. I have to be there. So I got online to sign up because then the school really needed a lot of parental support for them to be able to do things. They weren't able to travel without that support. When you think of going up in the mountains, you need a lot of chaperones.
Yes.
So I remember standing in line with all the parents and I was just really elated, number one, because there was so much parent involvement. So that was very key. You know, that was a positive. But I finally got there and there was like no spaces for me to put my name. I was like, well, there's no way that my child's going to go camping and I'm not going to be there, you know? So I remember Jerome and I dividing up. But what the school did in part of the experience is, if you think about 6-year-olds, first grade, already knowing how to build in teams. So the week before the camping trip, they all had to walk to the King Supers near the school. Jerome took care of that trip, you know, so he was that volunteer. But that's where they went in, they learned their math. Okay, we need so many hot dogs, we need so many buns, because they had to calculate and be able to eat for the 3 days. I said, okay, I got to figure out how I'm going on this trip. I told the teacher, because there's no way you're taking my child without me. He said, oh, you could just drive the van up the mountain. Picture that, right? Anyway, but I was there. That was the whole point of the story. I got to the trip and the parents said, "Oh, this is going to be the easiest trip ever." And I'm thinking, 6-year-olds, 3 days, easy? No way. It was the easiest trip.
Wow.
And then this is the first 2, 3 weeks of school.
Mhm.
Those children already knew how to work in teams. They already knew that we work in fours. They already knew that I'm responsible to make sure that everyone has their backpack every day. I'm responsible to make sure everyone has their raincoat, so on and so forth. But we got to the campsite, they literally took over. They got to the van, unloaded everything, took everything down to the campsite. They set up all their tents. They
Mm.
bought all the food. It was simple. It was the easiest trip. But I think the key with the expeditionary learning was that they learned how to work as a crew.
Yeah.
So you're no better and you're not going to advance any faster if I'm not there with you. So
Mm.
that was real key on expeditionary learning, you know? So it was good, it was great, but think about that now for the next 8 years of
Yeah,
that ability, you know, and what they've learned and how to work with one another and not compete with one another.
that's
That's
right.
the other thing. They didn't compete. They all helped each other at all aspects.
And I love that because, you talked about the critical thinking, the
Yeah,
math, learning how to make sure that there was enough for everyone.
yeah,
And someone may say, okay, what does that have to do with cultural? But it's the whole, gift of curiosity. It's the whole
yeah.
thing about making sure that you understand that you're learning new things and you're open to learning new things. And then you're also being able to utilize that critical thinking skill, which
Mhm,
unfortunately, so many young people don't always necessarily have. And I know
mhm,
one of my favorite parts about the expeditionary learning school
mhm.
with you and the kids, y'all took that trip to Catalina Island on a ship and
Yes,
talk about having young people really taking on the leadership role and
right,
making sure well, you tell the story.
right, right. So it was probably fourth and fifth grade. Trip flew to Catalina Island. We stayed out on the ship on the water for the whole week. You
Mm.
know, I had the opportunity to chaperone in Morgan's class and Jordan's class, so I got to go twice.
Yeah.
But anyway,
And
um,
only you could work that. Yes.
but they took care of the ship. It was their onus. You know, it wasn't a matter of we were just chaperones to make sure that the sides were clear, no one was leaning over the boat. Over the ship, so to speak, and we all slept down below, and the ship had sails,
Yeah.
and they were responsible for acting like sailors and living as a sailor the whole week.
Mhm.
So it was from setting the sails every morning, polishing
Mhm.
the stern, the wheel. But they had all those responsibilities and cleaning, washing down the salt water off the ship. It was just amazing. And then they had fun. We were able to jump off in the middle of the ocean,
Mhm.
sail over to Catalina Island on a little boat and stay there for the day and come back. But it was just amazing because it wasn't just, oh, we're out on the ocean. They did science. They had science in the water, for the whole week. So it was fabulous. Great learning. I
And
remember doing squid writing, just a little bit of everything.
yeah,
So
and I think what's so great about that too
yeah,
is that, oftentimes you may hear parents say, well, I don't know, and this and that, but we have to give them that encouragement to take on these new challenges. And this is not going to be a conversation about school and types of schools, but just know that there is this option out there so that if you think, oh, I don't know how to expose my child, I don't know what to do, there are schools that are out there, there are clubs and organizations that can really expose children to this wide variety of different experiences.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember just asking a friend because I was, like I said, we don't want to make this about school, but it
Hmm.
was important to find out I had to get it right,
Yeah.
because education, memorization, book, why can't it be fun and all about travel? You
Hmm.
know, and that's how I saw Remso was very much all about the experiences and moving to the experience. The experience wasn't just sitting there in the textbook. It's like we're going to experience. We might have read about it, but we're going to take that fifth day, that Friday, and that's when we're going to move. So, but yeah, just phenomenal. I just said to a friend, I need something, and she says, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do expeditionary learning. Well, that's all I needed to know. I was on the task looking for, well, tell me about expeditionary learning. Where is it? And that's really how we got there. You
Was
know?
the wolves. Yeah. Just so when Miles went there, it was studying the wolves, and they went to Yellowstone with
Yeah.
however many packs on. And I felt the same way, like, oh my goodness, you're sending my child out to the wilderness.
Yeah. Well, I
Study.
was there when the wolves came to the school. That
Oh,
was
Lord.
phenomenal. But again, that hands-on learning, which is preparing, kind of getting back to that curiosity, it was just really in preparation of what's next, what
Yeah,
else is out there. I
yeah,
remember them going to homeless shelters.
yeah.
They were studying about life and building and living. And they,
Mhm.
had to develop a friend in a homeless shelter and write a book to a friend. So definitely, I think that, overall, that whole expeditionary learning just kind of fell into, what our plan was for our children to be able to learn, and have that hands-on experience.
I
Because my
love
mother always said, go Montessori. Okay, mother, you said go Montessori, I'll go Montessori,
right.
And that's where they started. They went to Montessori first. I'm like, oh, this is phenomenal. This study, hands-on learning, again, doing and moving. And then just extra learning kind of fell right into it.
Well, and in the intro, I forgot to acknowledge that you are an assistant director at a Montessori school. So this stuff comes very naturally to you. And I also wanted to add that you are an adventurer and a traveler. And I
Yeah.
know we talked a lot about locally some of the things that have taken place, but talk to me about a trip that you and the family took that was really meaningful for the two of you, or for the four of you.
I remember we first moved to Colorado.
Mhm.
And we were thinking, okay, we're all the way over here on the West Coast and, so far away from family. So we had a family reunion for Jerome's family. And we said, okay, we're going to take this time and money to fly east. We're going to stay east and do a lot of things. So we started off in Florida, and the children were about 3 and 5. So we went Kissimmee,
Yeah.
rented a
Where we
home.
are now.
Yep. Rented a home, beautiful home with the curved stairs, outside pool. And we kind of did Disney Park one day, in the house the next day, pool. We did that for 5 days. And then we left there and said, okay, we have time in between the family reunion. So then we adventured and we went and took the car and we drove to it was Hilton Head, South Carolina, you know. And it was so cute with the children because I remember them going into the hotel saying, oh, this home is okay. It's okay, but it wasn't like that big old house, right?
Right.
And then we went to the family reunion, and we got to the family reunion, and it was in South Carolina, in a small little town. So it was more like a motel we were in. And I'll never forget, Morgan said, I don't like this home.
Yes.
But because it was like, kind of pull up to the front door, that was your
Yes.
room. But it was a great experience because of the time that we spent. That was like 2 weeks of just traveling, and traveling with the kids and making the best of going to the East Coast.
That's right.
But it was good because they got to see so much, the classic Disney World, take your children to, and then the beach and, on Hilton Head. And then the family reunion. I mean, that was just like everything. That was a nice culmination towards the end. So that was one of the, I think, the most memorable ones. We had a few in there, but even now for Mother's Day, I'll say, I don't necessarily want a gift or a birthday gift, but I like some time. Can we do a picnic? Some
Yeah.
time together? Because now we have to kind of create it. Now
Mm.
that they're older and doing their own thing, and Morgan lives out of state now, so it's a lot harder. But
Mm. Well, I love that. And I love the way that you do family and all of the many adventures that we got to share together when the kids were younger. And I'm sure we'll get to share some more as they get older. But even working with our young adults and seeing the world kind of through their eyes and how they experience different things has been a lot of fun. And I mean, we can talk forever about the different experiences that we've had, even our trip to when you came out to Florida and we did what we did out
yes.
here. But let me ask you to get ready to close out. What
Mhm.
advice would you give to a parent that was listening and saying, you know what, I really want to infuse more adventure, more experiences into my family, whether they have young kids or older kids? What advice would you give to them?
The advice that I would give is, they talk about a bucket list, and the bucket list kind of has that term of finality, but, make a life list,
Yeah.
and make that, we call it a life list, make a life list and just say that through the times so that we can kind of have a plan, and just try to do the best that you can to put a few little adventures on there that you would like to do, because if you don't write it down, it doesn't happen.
Ooh, talk.
Um, And it doesn't matter wherever it is, even if it's, we want to go down the block, or we want to build a book stand in front of our house, whatever it may be. But that's an adventure. Just adventures come in so many different ways. But just try to, to have a plan, because time just goes by, and then you kind of miss those moments. The scrapbooking, all of that is very good. We have our phones, we get our pictures in our phones, and sometimes they sit there, sometimes they don't, but just remember that you have what you have captured. Now see what you can do with what you've captured. And then that's an adventure within itself, just trying to put that together.
I love it. I love it. So start yourself, not a bucket list.
Close them early. I can't forget that. I know you want to close, but Michelle knows I like to talk, but expose them early. Because I remember trying to get Morgan and Jordan both exposure, and we Morgan participated in a people to people program, where she did a European tour.
Yeah.
And I remember trying to get Jordan to do it, and we went to the meeting, and Jordan is not as adventurous as Morgan. He has his ways, but we were sitting there and they were doing a trip on Australia, and every time I look at Jordan, he'd be like don't send me, and Morgan was the one like, yeah, send me, so right. She ended up taking the trip. Beautiful thing, but she, kind of a keen traveler, she'll always be a traveler, but they both love to go, and it's so nice that they can just go through security, go to the airport. I just remember incidents, where we were traveling and I got caught up with trying to go through my hair, and miss, I got to pat you down. And I went through all of that, and I looked up, I said, oh, I have children. And they would just stand there waiting for me, but their experience, and they kind of just did that travel, which is awesome. They know I can trust them to say, oh, you can go. So they go little by little.
Yeah. What I was going to say is, I heard what you were saying about going through security, et cetera. Yeah. And then you're a passport. You might not.
But go ahead.
I said, get a passport. Everybody.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Everybody needs a passport.
That's right. That's right. I know it may take a little bit longer right now, but get yourself on a waiting list and get yourself a passport.
Apply and get it. It's a must.
That's right. And get it for the kids too. You just never know when.
Family, everybody.
That's right. When it's time to pick up and go somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Woo. Well, I can extended family too and say, hey, did you get your passport?
That's right.
Can I help you get your passport?
Yes, yes. Oh, it's the key to so many new opportunities. Oh, I love it. Well, I don't know where the next dream vacation trip is, but count me in. Have passport, we'll travel. And even more importantly, let's get our young people and our older people too, as you mentioned, experiences together.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you for being a friend, and thank you for inviting me on the conversation. I so truly just
right back at you. I love this, and like I said, we can keep talking on and on, but maybe there'll be a part 2, because we can talk about our dream destinations and the destinations that we've actually been able to get to.
Can I show you one more thing before we go?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in my origami owl locket, you know. Mm-hmm. I want to tell you what I put in there for you, for as far as destinations.
Yes.
I put tennis rackets in there because I have to get to a Grand Slam. But I put a family tree in there for your legacy, which is so, so important. And I have a globe for travel, and then a heart of love, and then an atomizer, which is my mother's favorite. So. Oh.
Say it one more time, just in case. So we have
what's in the racket? We have the racket. We have the family tree, that symbol of the tree, for legacy. Yeah. We have a globe, atomizer, and then the infinity love symbol.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, we're just going to keep that love going around and around. Yes. Thank you so much, Shawn. And I want to invite everyone to, listen to this conversation, add to the conversation. If there's a trip that you took with your family that you thought was most meaningful to you, please share that. I know a friend put Greece, and I forget the other travel destination. Shawn, where did you put?
I put the Legacy Museum in
Atlanta, Alabama.
Montgomery, Alabama.
Yes.
That was pre-COVID. That was the pre-COVID trip.
That's right. Awesome. All good. We hitting those roads again.
And Morgan's thing is she wants to go back to Greece. So,
And you know, Faith
So
things
that's
are
our
back
favorite.
to Italy. So that, yeah, so they'll connect somewhere.
And that's what we want. Broaden your horizons.
That's right.
That's
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 right.
do
I
travel.
love it. That's right.
Good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, folks, until the next time, we'll be talking some more with Family Strong Conversations. The next show is going to be all about the finances and getting your financial house in order and learning how to build wealth in our families. So stay tuned for that. But for now, thank you again, Shawn.
Thank
Love
you.
you, girl. And we will keep the conversation going. Take
Yes.
care, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.